Well now, it seems we've stumbled upon another one of those curious quirks of the human mind. This business of memory, or as I like to call it, the mind's attic. It's a peculiar thing, this ability of ours to capture the world around us and tuck it away for later use. Well now, it seems this here memory business is a mighty curious thing, ain't it? Seems like our senses are always taking in all manner of information, but if we can't hold on to it, well, then, what's the dang use? It might as well be a newborn babe, I reckon. Take this here attention and perception business. If we can't see things right in the first place, or if our mind's wandering off somewhere else, how in tarnation are we supposed to make any kind of sensible decision? Might as well be trying to herd cats. You see, our memory's like one of them fancy 3-story houses, each floor serving its own particular purpose. Let me break it down for you properly, because understanding how your memory works or doesn't work might just save your hide one day. The first floor, what them scientific types call ultra short-term memory, ain't nothing but a quick service lobby where everything first comes in. The most interesting thing about this floor is how quickly things move through it. We're talking about 8 seconds tops. That's why when your spouse hollers at you from the other room, you might catch yourself saying, "What?" Even though you heard them just fine. Your brain's just buying time to make sense of what came in through them ears. Now, the second floor. That's your short-term memory, or working memory if you're feeling fancy. This here's where things get mighty interesting. And by interesting, I mean treacherous. You see, this floor can only hold about 7 things at once, give or take 2, depending on how sharp you're feeling that day. Try to stuff more in there, and something's bound to fall out. And that brings me to my point, friends. Our memory ain't like one of them modern computers, perfect and precise. It's more like an old fishing net with holes in it. Sometimes things slip right through. Sometimes they get tangled up with other memories. And sometimes what you pull up ain't quite what you threw in there in the first place. Now, let's mosey on up to the third floor, what them experts call long-term memory. Seems like this floor's got unlimited storage, but don't you go getting too excited about that. Just because you can put something up there, don't mean you can fetch it back down when you need it. This here long-term memory's got 2 main rooms, the semantic room, where you keep all your book learning and general knowledge, and the episodic room, where all your personal experiences are stored. But here's the rub. Them experiences ain't stored like photographs. No, sir, they're more like stories that get a little different each time you tell them. That's why you and your sister might remember that family Christmas of '92 about as differently as night and day. Now, here's something mighty important about how information moves between these floors. Picture yourself trying to remember your new garage door code. It goes something like this. First floor, 8 seconds. You see them numbers, 2584. Second floor, 20 seconds. You keep repeating them numbers in your head. Third floor. If you're lucky and pay enough attention, them numbers might make it up here. But here's where folks usually go wrong. They trust their memory more than they ought to. And that brings me to what might be the most important part of this whole discussion. How to keep yourself from falling into these memory traps. Here's what them safety experts recommend. And I'll tell you straight, it ain't just for them airline mechanics and nuclear engineers. This here's for anybody who's got something important to remember. Write it down. I don't care if it's a shopping list or heart medication doses. Your memory's about as reliable as a chocolate teapot when it comes to specific numbers and sequences. Chunk it up. If you absolutely must remember something, break it into smaller pieces, like them phone numbers. Instead of remembering 800-55-51234, think 800-55-51234. Check, then check again. Don't trust what you think you remember. especially if lives or property depend on it. Always verify against written instructions. Use checklists, even for things you do every day. Them airline pilots use checklists every single flight, and they've been flying the same plane for years. And here's something that might surprise you. Them motor programs we develop. That's when you do something so often it becomes automatic, like driving a car. Now, these can be mighty useful, but they're also dangerous as a rattlesnake in a lucky dip. Why? Because when you're doing something on autopilot, you might miss when something's different or wrong. Now, let's get down to brass tacks about how all this memory business affects your everyday life and what you can do about it. Because knowing about a problem ain't worth a hill of beans if you don't know how to fix it. First off, let's talk about the times when your memory's most likely to play you false. And believe me, it ain't just when you're tired or stressed. Take your modern-day routine. You're cooking dinner while helping your kid with homework. Your phone's buzzing with messages, and the TV's going in the background. Your brain's like a juggler trying to keep too many balls in the air, and something's bound to drop. That's what the experts call interference. Now, here's how to protect yourself from your own memory's shortcomings. The one thing at a time rule. Just like you can't be in two places at once, your working memory can't handle multiple important tasks simultaneously. When you're dealing with anything crucial, medications, repairs, cooking times, important measurements, give it your full attention. Everything else can wait them few extra minutes. The written record rule. Get yourself a system for writing things down and use it religious-like. It could be a notebook, your phone, or one of those fancy digital assistants. But here's the important part. Don't just write it down right. Date everything. Be specific. None of that some or a few business. Note down any changes. Cross things off when they're done. Review and update regular-like. The double-check dance. Before you finish any important task, do what I call the double-check dance. Stop what you're doing. Read back your notes or instructions, check off each step, verify measurements and numbers. If something don't look right, assume it ain't right. The routine revolution. Now, the motor programs I mentioned earlier, they're like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, they help us do complicated things without thinking too hard. On the other, they can make us overlook important details. Here's how to make them work for you instead of against you. Build safety checks into your routines. Use verbal confirmation. Say it out loud. Create visual markers, like turning pill bottles upside down after use. Never skip a step, even if you're in a hurry. And here's something mighty important about them modern times we're living in. Technology ain't always the answer. Sure, your phone can remind you to take your pills, but what happens when the battery dies? Or when you hit dismiss without thinking? That's why I recommend what I call the belt and suspenders approach. Use technology, but always have a backup system. Let me leave you with this sobering thought. Every year, thousands of accidents happen not because folks don't know what they're doing, but because they trusted their memory when they shouldn't have. Whether it's leaving a child in a hot car, thinking you dropped them at daycare, taking the wrong dose of medicine, remembering wrong instructions, or causing a house fire, being sure you turned off the stove. Memory failures can have devastating consequences. The good news is, you don't have to be a victim of your own memory shortcomings. By understanding how your memory works, and more importantly, how it fails, you can protect yourself and your loved ones from them memory-related mishaps. Remember, if you'll pardon the expression, your memory ain't perfect, and it ain't meant to be. It's a wonderful tool for learning and growing, but when it comes to important details and critical tasks, treat it like you would a charming but unreliable friend. Enjoy its company, but don't stake your life on it.